Cornered in a bustling restaurant by her ex, Lena desperately sought refuge beneath a stranger's table, whispering, "Please, pretend I'm yours." The man's cold, dark gaze met hers, a faint smile playing on his lips. This was the notorious Mafia boss, and he had just publicly claimed her. Lena's heels clattered on the damp pavement as she fled, her breath coming in ragged gasps that seared her lungs. Behind her, Derek's voice sliced through the Chicago night, sharp as a blade. "You can't hide from me, Lena. You're mine." She never looked back. Those once loving eyes now held only fury, and a backward glance was always how he caught her. Her phone was dead, her apartment key gone, lost during their struggle, and the biting October air pierced her thin jacket. Just keep running. She needed to find people, lights, any place but here. The downtown district glowed ahead. Restaurants, bars, people in expensive coats laughing over wine. Safety lay in numbers. She pushed on, ignoring a painful blister forming on her heel and the curious stares from couples on the sidewalk. Derek's footsteps drew nearer. This time, he wasn't alone. She could distinguish at least two other pairs of boots slamming against the concrete. 3 against 1. He always needed backup to feel like a man. A restaurant, Aurelios, materialized on her right, its name shimmering in elegant gold script. Through the windows, she glimpsed white tablecloths, crystal glasses, men in suits. A place Derek could never afford, meaning he might not dare follow her inside. She burst through the door, causing the maitre d's professional smile to waver. "Miss, do you have a—" "Please," she gasped, the word fractured. "Please, he's right behind me." The maitre d's eyes flicked to the window, where Derek's enraged face appeared. Understanding dawned on his features, but before he could react, Derek shoved the door open. "Lena, outside now." Derek's voice was deceptively calm, the tone he used just before things escalated. His two companions, Tony and Marcus, construction workers he drank with, men who believed hitting women kept them in line, flanked him, their hands tucked into their jacket pockets. Lena instinctively recoiled, her gaze sweeping the restaurant. Most diners continued eating, displaying practiced urban indifference. However, in a commanding semicircular booth at the back, 3 men weren't ignoring anything. The central figure exuded an aura of kingship, surveying his domain. Dark hair was slicked back from a face that sculpted from marble, all sharp angles and cold intelligence. His suit likely cost more than Lena's car. He observed the commotion with the detached interest of someone analyzing a chess move. Across from him sat an older man, silver threading through his black hair, a scar dissecting his left eyebrow. They had been engrossed in conversation, but now both watched Derek's approach with the predatory stillness of hunters before a strike. Lena's survival instinct screamed, "These aren't normal men." Everything about them, the wide berth other diners gave their table, the hulking bodyguard near the kitchen entrance, their intense focus shouted danger. But Derek was a known danger, and right now, she would gamble with the devil she didn't know. She bolted, not towards an exit or the kitchen, but towards them. Derek lunged, his fingers grazing her jacket, but she was already in motion, executing an absurd action movie maneuver she'd only seen in films. Desperation fueled her boldness. She dropped to the floor and slid directly under the table, between the dark-haired man's legs, pressing herself against his shins like a child hiding from a monster. The restaurant fell silent. "Please," she whispered, tilting her head back to meet eyes so dark they appeared black in the dim light. "Please pretend I'm yours." Time seemed to stop. The man stared down at her with an unreadable expression. Then, slowly, a smile curved his lips. Not kind, not warm, but amused, like a cat watching an unexpected mouse. "Well," he drawled, his voice like aged whiskey, smooth and dangerous. "This is new." Derek reached the table, Tony and Marcus close behind. "That's my girlfriend. She's having an episode. Just let me—" "Your girlfriend?" The dark-haired man's voice remained even. He didn't move, yet the room's temperature seemed to plummet 20 degrees. "Is that so?" "Yeah, we just had a fight. You know how women get emotional." "I don't, actually." He took a slow sip of his wine, his hand casually dropping to where Lena crouched. His fingers brushed her hair, a claiming gesture so subtle, yet so absolute, Lena felt it deep in her bones. "Because the women in my life know better than to run from me. Don't you, Kara?" The Italian endearment rolled off his tongue like silk. Lena's heart pounded, but she understood the script he was writing. Yes, she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. Derek's face contorted. Listen, I don't know who you think you are. I know exactly who I am. The man set down his wineglass with deliberate care. The question is, do you know who I am? The older man across the table leaned back, and Lena caught a glint of amusement in his scarred face. The bodyguard by the kitchen subtly shifted his stance. Derek hesitated. Tony whispered something urgent in his ear. Because, the dark-haired man continued, his hand still resting possessively on Lena's head, I'm trying to have a civilized dinner meeting, and you've interrupted it. You've upset my companion, and, frankly, you're starting to bore me. Those three things together, never a good combination. The threat lay beneath his words like a shark in calm waters. Derek must have sensed it, for he took a step back. This isn't over, Lena, Derek spat. I believe it is. The man's smile never faltered. In fact, I believe you were just leaving, all three of you, and if I were you, I'd make sure our paths never cross again. I'm particular about people who touch what's mine. Derek opened his mouth, closed it, then spun and stalked out. Tony and Marcus scrambled after him. Slowly, the restaurant's ambient noise returned, clinking glasses, soft conversations, jazz from hidden speakers. But the tension at the table remained palpable. You can come out now, the dark-haired man said, his voice retaining its sharp edge. Though I admit, I'm curious what you thought would happen next. Lena crawled out, her legs trembling, finding herself face to face with a man who exuded both amusement and calculation. Thank you, she breathed. I'm so sorry, Damen Russo, the scarred man interjected, his eyes sharp. Do you have any idea who you just involved in your domestic dispute? The name struck her like ice water. Russo? Oh, God. She had just hidden between the legs of Chicago's most notorious Mafia boss. Lena's face went white. I should go. Sit. Damien's voice, though not loud, offered no room for argument. He gestured to the empty space beside him in the booth. The scarred man, Vince, she realized with growing horror, watched her with renewed interest, his gaze traveling from her disheveled hair to her torn jacket, then back to Damien. A slow smile spread across his face. Well, Vince drawled. Damen Russo with a girlfriend. I didn't see that coming. Life's full of surprises, Damien replied smoothly, his hand settling on the small of Lena's back, as she slid into the booth beside him. The touch felt like a brand through her thin jacket. A stocky man in a gray suit, with hard eyes and a calculating expression, appeared at the table's edge. Maybe 50. Boss, we should continue our discussion, Marco. Damien cut him off. My consigliere worries too much, he added to Vince, but Lena caught the warning look Marco shot her way. Another man approached from the bar, younger, perhaps early 30s, with slicked back hair and a phone in his hand. He leaned close to Damien's ear, whispering something while his eyes remained fixed on Lena. When he straightened, his expression was carefully blank. My second Rico, Damien introduced casually. He's already running a background check on you. Kara, standard procedure. You understand? Lena's stomach plummeted. A background check would reveal everything. Her arrests for assaulting Derek when she'd fought back, the restraining order she'd filed that the judge denied, the 2 jobs she'd lost because Derek caused scenes. Vince leaned back, swirling his wine. Where were we before the interruption? Ah, yes, the distribution routes through the port. The territory stays neutral, Damien said, his attention fully shifting to business. Your people, my people, everyone gets their slice. No more turf wars scaring off legitimate business. Generous? Vince's tone suggested he thought the opposite. What's changed, Russo? 2 months ago, you wanted exclusive control. Damien's thumb traced idle circles on Lena's back, a seemingly casual gesture that made her acutely aware of every nerve ending. 2 months ago, the feds weren't breathing down all our necks. Times change. We adapt or we get caught. Vince's eyes flicked to Lena. New relationships can make a man soft. The air thickened. Marco stiffened. Rico's hand subtly moved towards his jacket. Damien smiled, and it was the most dangerous expression Lena had ever seen. Soft enough to negotiate, hard enough to end this conversation permanently if you bore me. Your choice. The two men stared at each other across the table, an entire war being fought in silence. Finally, Vince laughed. Fine, neutral territory, but I want monthly audits. Rico returned, his phone screen glowing. He showed it to Damien, whose jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Problem? Vince asked too casually. Just business? Damien's hand left at Lena's back. It seems my companion's ex-boyfriend has filed a police report, theft of his property. A watch? He apparently directed his gaze at Lena. Did you steal a watch? What? No, I don't possess anything of his. I believe you. Damien's voice was calm, yet his eyes blazed with a muted fury, which indicates he's attempting to coerce the police into returning you to him. Creative, if somewhat predictable. Marco muttered under his breath. Boss, police involvement? Is Derek being clever? Vince interjected, his interest clearly piqued. Using the system against you? If the police arrive, if there's a scene, our arrangement here becomes complicated. Your association with a wanted woman, even for a minor offense, raises questions. It creates exposure. He smiled. Perhaps I should reevaluate our agreement. Lena's chest tightened. This situation was spiraling out of control. I'll simply go. I'll surrender myself. Explain everything. You will do nothing of the sort. Damen's hand returned to her back, now firmer. You sought my protection. I do not take that lightly. You don't even know me. I know enough. His eyes locked with hers. I recognize desperation when I see it. I understand fear, and I discern the look of someone who has been fighting alone for far too long. A flicker crossed his expression. Recognition, perhaps. You are not returning to him. Sirens wailed outside. Through the window, Lena observed 2 squad cars pulling up. Derek stood on the sidewalk, gesturing towards the restaurant. That scoundrel had called them himself, likely telling them she was armed and dangerous. Well, Vince announced, rising, this has been entertaining, but I believe I'll allow you to handle your domestic situation, Russo. We'll speak when matters are less convoluted. Sit down, Vince. Damien did not move. This complicates nothing. In fact, it simplifies everything. 4 police officers entered the restaurant, with Derek trailing behind them like a smug shadow. The lead officer, a seasoned man displaying sergeant's stripes, approached their table. Evening, gentlemen. We've received a report of a stolen... There's been a misunderstanding. Sergeant, Damen read his nameplate. Patterson. This is my woman. She took nothing that wasn't freely given. The sergeant's eyes widened slightly. Mr. Russo, I didn't realize you were... We still need to ask the young lady some questions. Ask me, Damen asserted. She is under my protection. Anything she possesses I gave her. Anything she did with my blessing. Derek pushed forward. She's nothing to you, Damen stated, rising. Suddenly the booth felt too confining for him. From this moment forward, if you approach her, if you call her, if you so much as think about her, you are no longer dealing with a frightened woman. You are dealing with me, and trust me when I say I am considerably less forgiving. Cameras flashed outside. Someone had alerted the press. Through the window, Lena saw reporters gathering. Sergeant Patterson looked between Damen and Derek, assessing his options. Sir, if you're claiming responsibility, I'm claiming her. Damen's arm wrapped around Lena's shoulders, pulling her against his side. Publicly, officially, is that clear enough, Sergeant? More flashes, more cameras. Tomorrow's headlines were writing themselves. Mafia King claims mystery woman. Lena's head spun. This couldn't be happening. She had sought help, not this. Not to become a pawn in whatever game Damen Russo was playing. But as Derek's face contorted with rage and the police hesitated, a realization dawned on her. For the first time in 2 years, Derek was the one who looked afraid. And Damen Russo had just made her untouchable. The drive to Damien's estate spanned 40 minutes, though it felt like a passage into another dimension. Lena sat in the back seat of a black SUV, Damen beside her, his phone pressed to his ear as he issued calm, clipped commands in Italian. Rico drove while Marco followed in a separate vehicle. The city lights receded, replaced by sprawling suburban areas with gates and lengthy driveways. They turned onto a private road bordered by oak trees, their branches forming a dense canopy that obscured the moon. "I didn't intend to embroil you in anything," Lena said quietly when Damien finally pocketed his phone. "You didn't embroil me. I chose to intervene." He regarded her with those enigmatic dark eyes. "Though I'm curious, why me? That restaurant held 100 people. You looked like someone Derek would be afraid of." A corner of his mouth curved upwards. "Smart girl." The SUV halted before iron gates that swung open silently. Beyond them, a stone mansion rose from manicured lawns, a vision from another era, all columns and arched windows, beautiful and formidable. "Welcome to my home," Damien stated, though his tone betrayed no warmth. "You'll remain here until this situation is resolved." "Resolved how?" "That depends on the intelligence of your ex-boyfriend." He stepped out, then extended his hand. Inside, the house met Lena's expectations perfectly. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, art likely more expensive than most people earned in a lifetime. It felt like a museum, not a residence. Every surface gleamed, every corner held shadows. A housekeeper appeared, a stern-faced woman in her 60s. "Mr. Russo, shall I prepare the guest wing?" "The blue room, Mrs. Chun, and bring something for Miss—" He paused, realizing he hadn't learned her full name. "Lena Martinez." "Miss Martinez to eat. She's had a difficult evening." As Mrs. Chun departed, a blur of movement caught Lena's eye. A young girl, perhaps 10 or 11, stood at the top of the curved staircase, gripping the railing. She possessed Damien's dark hair, but with softer features, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Isabella." Damen's voice softened in a way Lena hadn't heard before. "Come say hello." The girl descended slowly, her steps deliberate. When she reached them, she didn't speak. Instead, her hands moved in quick, graceful gestures. "Sign language." "Who is she?" Isabella signed, her eyes flitting between Damien and Lena. Damen's face tightened with frustration. He opened his mouth, clearly struggling to respond. Then Lena's hands moved. "My name is Lena," she signed, her movements fluid and natural. "It's nice to meet you." Isabella's face lit up like a sunrise. She signed rapidly, excitedly, her hands flying. "You know ASL. Uncle Damen tries, but he's terrible. Are you staying here? Do you like reading? I just finished this amazing book about—" "Slow down," Lena signed, laughing gently. "One question at a time." Damien stared at them both, his expression unreadable. "You know, sign language. I worked at a school for deaf children before." She trailed off, before Derek got her fired by showing up drunk and screaming in the parking lot. "I know ASL pretty well." Isabella grabbed Lena's hand, tugging her towards the stairs. "Can you read me a story? No one here signs very well. Mrs. Chun knows some, but she's always busy. And Uncle Damien signing is like watching a robot having a seizure." Lena choked on a laugh, catching Damien's raised eyebrow. "She says you sign like a robot." "She said more than that, I suspect." But there was no anger in his voice, only something softer, wearier. "Isabella lost her hearing from meningitis when she was 5. Her parents, my brother and his wife, died in a car accident 2 years ago. I've been trying to learn, but—" He made a helpless gesture, the first truly vulnerable movement she'd seen from him. "It's hard," Lena said gently. "But the fact that you try means everything to her." Isabella tugged again, insistent. "Go," Damen said. "I have calls to make. Mrs. Chun will show you your room after." Lena allowed Isabella to pull her up the stairs, down a hallway lined with family photos. A younger Damien, smiling with a man who must have been his brother. Isabella as a tiny girl with her parents, a family that had once been whole. Isabella's room was the first space in the house that felt lived in. Books strewn on the floor, drawings tacked to walls, a telescope by the window. The girl produced a fantasy novel about dragons and handed it to Lena expectantly. They settled on the bed, and Lena began to read aloud, her voice filling the quiet room. Every few pages, Isabella would interrupt with questions, and Lena would answer in sign, creating a hybrid conversation that felt natural, easy. She didn't notice Damien in the doorway until she glanced up between chapters. He stood there silently, his shoulder against the frame, watching them with an expression she couldn't name. Not cold, not calculating, but something raw and unguarded that made her breath catch. "Uncle Damien," Isabella signed, noticing him. "Isn't Lena great?" He signed something back, clumsy, imperfect, but Isabella beamed. "What did you tell her?" Lena asked. "That she should get to sleep soon. School tomorrow?" He straightened. "Mrs. Chun has your room ready. I'll have some of my people collect your things from your apartment tomorrow." "You don't have to. I claimed you in front of half of Chicago's underworld and the police department," he interrupted. "Whether you like it or not, you're under my protection now, which means you live here until Derek is no longer a problem." "And then what?" He met her eyes, and for a moment she saw past the Mafia boss to something else entirely. Someone who had built walls around himself until even his own niece couldn't reach him. Someone who had just watched a stranger accomplish in minutes what he'd been striving for years to do. "Then we'll see," he said quietly. But as he walked away, Lena realized something had irrevocably shifted. She wasn't just a random woman he'd helped. She had entered his world and fundamentally altered something within it. And in Damen Russo's world, change was always perilous. Rico sat in his car 2 blocks from the estate, phone pressed to his ear. The sun had not yet risen, painting the sky in shades of gray that mirrored his mood. "Yeah, this is Rico. I need information on someone." He rattled off Lena's details, full name, age, last known address, everything. Employment history, police records, known associates, and "I need it by noon." He ended the call and dialed another number. This one rang 3 times before a groggy voice answered. "Who the hell is this?" "I'm looking for Damen Martinez. Friend of his gave me this number." A beat of silence. "Who's asking?" Rico inquired, his voice carefully neutral. "Someone who might be able to help you get your girlfriend back." He pressed on. "I understand she shacked up with someone new, someone powerful. That's got to sting." "You have no idea." Derek's voice sharpened, now fully alert. "Who are you?" "Let's just say I work for the man who's keeping Lena from you," Rico responded smoothly. "And I think everyone would be better off if she returned to where she belongs." He heard Derek's breathing quicken. "When can we meet?" "Soon, very soon." Rico ended the call and gazed at the sprawling estate through his windshield. Damien was getting soft. The truce with Vince, for instance, a deal that conceded far too much territory. And now this woman, an apparent nobody, who had inexplicably captivated the boss overnight. Rico had devoted 12 years to ascending to second in command. He'd killed, lied, and disposed of bodies to earn Damien's trust. He wasn't about to stand by and watch everything unravel because the boss developed feelings. Into minority. Vince's penthouse office, a triumph of glass and steel overlooking the Chicago River, exuded power. He savored his espresso, reviewing the photos his men had snapped the previous night. Damien, arm around the girl, cameras flashing, police stepping aside. She appeared out of nowhere, his lieutenant reported, standing at attention. No family connections, no criminal record beyond a few domestic disputes. She's a civilian. A civilian Damien claimed publicly, Vince mused, tapping the photo. That's not like him. Damen Russo isn't impulsive. Everything's calculated. He leaned back. So, either this girl is more significant than she seems, or she's a weakness. Exactly, the lieutenant agreed. Double the surveillance on his estate, Vince commanded, a faint smile playing on his lips. I want to know her every move, every conversation. If Russo's distracted by some woman, that truce we signed becomes meaningless. He'll slip, make mistakes. He paused, his gaze fixed on the cityscape. And when he does, we'll take everything. His lieutenant nodded. Men are already positioned? What about the ex-boyfriend? Vince added. Keep tabs on him too. Angry ex-lovers often create useful chaos. Derek mid-morning. Derek's apartment was a wreck. Empty beer cans, dirty clothes, a gaping hole in the drywall where he'd punched it last night. He sat on his stained couch, laptop open, scrolling through news articles about Damen Russo, alleged mob boss, suspected in 12 murders, connections to politicians and judges. His hands trembled with a mixture of rage and something else, perhaps fear, but fear intertwined with opportunity. His phone vibrated, unknown number. Damen Martinez, who's asking? Someone from Vince Moretti's organization. We have a mutual interest in your situation. Derek sat straighter. Vince Moretti. He knew the name. Everyone in Chicago did. The second most powerful crime family in the city. I'm listening. You work construction, right? Union jobs, city contracts. Yeah. What's that got to do with... Those contracts go through people we control. You hear things, see things, names, dates, which projects Russo's people are involved in. The voice was smooth, persuasive. You help us, we help you. We can render Damen Russo's protection meaningless. We can get you access to Lena. Derek's pulse quickened. But patience, the voice continued. First, we need to know everything you know about Russo's operations, construction sites, union connections, shipping schedules, everything. Derek pictured Lena in that mansion, likely sleeping on silk sheets, playing house with a murderer. The image made his blood boil. I'll tell you everything, he declared. Lena, late morning. Lena awoke to sunlight filtering through gauzy curtains. For a fleeting moment, she forgot her surroundings. Then, memory flooded back. Damen, the restaurant, this beautiful prison. She dressed in the clothes Mrs. Chun had left, simple jeans and a perfectly fitting sweater, which implied someone had discreetly determined her size. The thought unsettled her. Downstairs, the house was quiet. A note on the kitchen counter read, "Make yourself at home. Isabella at school, back by 3. D. Make herself at home in a mafia boss's mansion? Right. She wandered outside, following a stone path through impeccably maintained gardens. Morning dew clung to perfectly trimmed hedges. A fountain gurgled nearby. It was beautiful, yet sterile and controlled, like everything in Damien's world. Beyond the gardens, she discovered a small courtyard with a bench, and there, unexpectedly, sat Damen with Isabella. When had Isabella arrived? Damien's hands moved carefully through signs, Isabella watching patiently, correcting his hand shapes, demonstrating again. Like this, Isabella signed slowly, not with your fingers stiff. Relax them. Damen tried again, his movements clumsy but determined. Isabella clapped when he got it right. Better. Now sign, I love you. Damien's hands formed the words. I love you. Even from a distance, Lena could discern the raw emotion on his face. Not the cold mafia boss from last night, but an uncle desperately trying to connect with his niece. Isabella flung her arms around him, and Damen held her tightly, his eyes closed. Lena turned to leave quietly, unwilling to intrude on the private moment, but a twig snapped under her foot. Damien's eyes opened, locking onto hers. For a heartbeat, she saw everything. The love, the frustration, the fear of failing the one person who depended on him. Then, the mask slid back into place. I didn't realize you were awake, he said, standing. Isabella waved excitedly. Will you have lunch with us? Isabella signed. Please, Uncle Damen is taking us to the cafe by the water. You don't have to, Lena began. It's not optional. Damien's voice was firm, but not unkind. From now on, where I go, you go. It's safer that way. What he didn't explicitly state was that it was also a message to Vince, to Derek, to anyone watching. Lena wasn't merely under his protection, she was his. And somewhere in the shadows, people were already plotting how to leverage that against him. The cafe sat right on the Chicago waterfront. Glass walls, white marble, and a view of sailboats bobbing in the harbor. The kind of place where a salad cost $40 and everyone came to see and be seen. Damien's SUV pulled up front and cameras immediately appeared, not paparazzi, but phones held by seemingly casual bystanders who had been waiting. Lena now recognized the deliberate setup. This wasn't merely lunch, this was theater. Smile, Damen murmured as he helped her out, his hand possessive on her lower back. We're giving them a show. Isabella emerged behind them, her school uniform replaced with a pretty blue dress. She took Lena's hand naturally, and Lena realized how this must appear. Damen Russo, with his niece and his woman, a family portrait. Inside, heads turned. Conversations paused mid-sentence. The maitre d' rushed over, practically trembling. Mr. Russo, your usual table is ready. They were led to a corner booth with a perfect view of both the entrance and the water strategic. Rico appeared from somewhere, taking a position at the bar with sightlines to their table. Two more men Lena didn't recognize flanked the entrance. Is this normal? Lena whispered to Damen. Define normal, Damien scanned the room with practiced ease. "We're here to be seen, to make a point." "What point?" "That you're not going anywhere," he signaled the waiter. "And that anyone who thinks otherwise is welcome to try changing my mind." A flash caught Lena's attention. Someone across the street with a telephoto lens. When she looked closer, she saw the man lower his camera and speak into his phone. "Vince's people," Damien said, following her gaze. "Right on schedule." Isabella tugged Lena's sleeve, signing, "Why is everyone staring at us?" "Because your uncle is important," Lena signed back. "People always watch important people." "Is that why you're scared?" Isabella's young face was too perceptive. "I'm not scared," Lena forced a smile. "Just adjusting." Isabella studied her for a moment, then signed, "Uncle Damien won't let anyone hurt you. He's scary, but he's good." The simple faith in those words made Lena's throat tighten. Their food arrived, elaborate dishes that Lena barely tasted. She was too aware of being watched, of the weight of whatever game Damien was playing. Halfway through the meal, her unease proved justified. The cafe door opened, and 3 men in expensive suits walked in. The lead man was tall, with iron-gray hair and the bearing of someone accustomed to commanding rooms. Behind him, 2 younger men surveyed the space like predators. Damien's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Vince's lieutenants," he said quietly. "And that's Michael Costa, his consigliere. This is no coincidence." Costa's eyes found their table, and a cold smile crossed his face. He spoke to the maitre d', who nervously gestured to a table directly in Damien's line of sight. Costa nodded and sat, never breaking eye contact. "Is this a problem?" Lena whispered. "It's a test." Damien set down his fork with deliberate calm. "They want to see if you rattle me, if having you here makes me vulnerable." "Does it?" His eyes met hers, dark and unreadable. "That depends on you." "On what?" "On whether you run." Before she could respond, a familiar figure appeared in the cafe window. Derek stood across the street, hands shoved in his jacket pockets, staring directly at her. Even from this distance, she could discern the rage on his face. Her breath caught. "Damien, I see him." Damien's voice was ice. He didn't even turn his head. "Rico?" Rico was already moving, speaking into his phone. Within seconds, 2 of their men exited the cafe, heading toward Derek's position. Derek saw them coming and bolted. "He won't get far," Damien said. "I have people on every corner of this block." "You knew he'd come." "I counted on it." Damien took a sip of his espresso. "Derek, Vince's people, all of them. They needed to see that you're protected. That threatening you means threatening me." He glanced at Costa's table. "And that I don't flinch." Unaware of the hidden tensions, Isabella showed Lena a school drawing, a stick-figure family featuring herself, Damien, and, tellingly, Lena. "That's us," Isabella signed with pride. A pang shot through Lena's heart. This innocent child was blissfully unaware she was a pawn in a dangerous game. Or perhaps, Lena reconsidered, she was simply desperate for any semblance of a family unit. A man approached their table, stocky, in his late 40s, with a distinctive police officer's gait. He greeted Damien with unsettling, false cordiality. "Officer Martinez," Damien's smile was sharp, "fancy seeing you enjoying establishments beyond your pay grade." The officer's feigned friendliness faltered. "Just happened to be in the neighborhood." "Interesting," Damien mused, "because I'm almost certain your usual neighborhood is Derek Martinez's. Any relation?" The officer's face tightened. "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything, Alex. I'm stating facts." Damien leaned back. "You're living dangerously on Derek's behalf. You've helped him dodge 2 assault charges, and now you're here reporting to Vince's people." He gestured casually toward Costa's table. "You left Michael's table 2 minutes ago. Did you already collect your envelope, or do you receive payment later?" Alex's hand twitched toward his belt, a gun. Freeze. Every one of Damien's men subtly shifted, hands slipping inside their jackets. "I'd reconsider your next move," Damien said softly. "A corrupt cop drawing a weapon on a man having lunch with his niece? That's a career-ending headline, potentially a life-ending one." Alex's hand dropped. "This isn't over." "Actually, it is. Tell Derek that if he comes within 100 yards of Lena again, not even corrupt cops will save him." Tell Vince his intimidation tactics are juvenile. And tell yourself that the next time you accept money to harass civilians, you might want to check their connections first. Alex stalked out, his face a vivid shade of purple. Costa rose from his table, buttoning his jacket. He walked over, stopping at their booth with a smile that conveyed no warmth. Russo, quite the spectacle you're creating. Just a family lunch, Michael, nothing more. Of course. Costa's gaze lingered on Lena. Miss Martinez, isn't it? You've certainly landed on your feet, from running in the streets to dining with Chicago's finest. The emphasis on finest was unmistakably derisive. She dines where I dine, Damien stated flatly. Was there something you wanted? Just to deliver a message from Mr. Moretti. He's concerned about the complications arising from your new relationship. Wonders if it might affect our recent arrangement. Tell Vince nothing affects our arrangement except his inability to honor it. Costa's smile broadened. We'll see. He nodded to Isabella. Enjoy your lunch. As he departed, Lena realized she had been holding her breath. Welcome to my world, Damien said quietly. Still think hiding under my table was a good idea? Lena watched the boats in the harbor, the water sparkling in the sunlight, and pondered the darkness lurking beneath such picturesque surfaces. Ask me tomorrow, she replied. Damien's laugh, brief but genuine, escaped him. Fair enough. But as they exited the cafe, amidst flashing cameras and watchful enemies, Lena knew tomorrow might bring answers she wasn't ready for. The construction site squatted on the south side, an unfinished skeleton of steel beams piercing the gray afternoon sky. Silent concrete mixers, scaffolding enveloped in plastic tarps that flapped in the wind, marked the scene. A sign out front boasted luxury condos by spring, but everyone working the site knew it was a front for money laundering. Union jobs that paid double the going rate, no questions asked. Derek's boots crunched on gravel as he passed the unmanned security gate. His hands were thrust deep into his pockets, fingers brushing the flask of whiskey he'd been nursing since dawn. The cafe incident had left him humiliated yet again. Russo's men had chased him for 6 blocks before he'd finally lost them in an alley. But he'd made his calls, and now he was here. Martinez. A voice echoed from within the skeletal structure. Derek ascended the concrete stairs to the 3rd floor. No walls yet, just support columns and the sprawling city beyond. A man awaited him there, late 30s, an expensive leather jacket over construction-dusted jeans. Tony Giordano, one of Vince Moretti's lieutenants. Derek had met him twice before at union meetings where business was conducted in back rooms. You're late, Tony said, lighting a cigarette. Had to make sure I wasn't followed. Derek glanced around. This place secure? As secure as it gets. We own the union rep, the foreman, and half the city inspectors. Tony exhaled smoke. Now, you said you have information about Russo. Talk. Derek pulled out his flask and took a long drink. First, we need to discuss terms. What do I get for this? Tony's eyes narrowed. You get Vince's organization behind you. That's not enough. I want guarantees. I want Lena back. I want... Derek's voice cracked. She's mine. Russo can't just take what's mine. She ran from you, from what I hear. Hid under his table like you were going to kill her. I never... Derek stopped, forcing calm into his voice. She overreacts, gets dramatic. But we belong together. Everyone knows it. Tony studied him with the cold assessment of someone who trafficked in human commodities. Russo claimed her publicly. Taking her back won't be easy. That's why I need Vince. Russo's powerful, but Moretti's got reach too, right? Political connections, judges? We have what we need, Tony affirmed with a flick of ash. What we need from you is intel. You work these sites, union jobs, city contracts. Russo's people are embedded in every project on the north side. We know it, but we need specifics, names, dates, which projects are fronts for his money, which inspectors he owns. Documentation, if you can get it. Derek's mind raced. He'd worked construction for 8 years, bouncing between union jobs. He'd heard things, seen things, foremen who answered to family associates, shipments that arrived at night, cash payments in manila envelopes. He never paid much attention because keeping his head down kept him employed. But now, the Riverwalk project, Derek said slowly. That's all Russo money. The permits got pushed through in 2 weeks. It normally takes 6 months. The union rep who signed off is Frank Delgado. He's on Russo's payroll. Everyone knows it. Tony's eyes sharpened. What else? The Port Authority expansion, those warehouse contracts. Half went to shell companies Russo controls. I've seen the invoices. My crew supervisor is sloppy, leaves stuff lying around. Derek gained confidence. I can get you copies, dates, amounts, which city councilman approved the contracts. Now we're talking. Tony pulled out his phone, typing something. Vince needs ammunition against Russo. Political pressure, legal exposure, anything that makes him vulnerable. The truce between our families is temporary. When it breaks, and it will, we need to hit him from every angle. And in exchange? In exchange, we help you with your Lena problem. Tony smiled, and it was not pleasant. Russo's protection only works if he's strong. If he's distracted, dealing with federal investigations, watching his legitimate businesses crumble, he gets sloppy, weak, and weak men can't protect their toys. She's not a toy, Derek snapped. We were together 3 years. She wore my ring. She was going to marry me until she ran because she got confused. Those women at her work, they filled her head with feminist nonsense about boundaries and abuse. Derek's voice rose. I never hit her that hard. A slap here and there when she got mouthy. That's normal. My old man did the same to my mom. They were married 40 years. Tony's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Right. Well, whatever your relationship issues, they work in our favor. You keep feeding us information about Russo's operations. We make sure you're protected. We'll even put you on the payroll, foreman position. Triple your current rate. Derek's heart leaped. Foreman. You're useful now. That comes with perks. Tony stubbed out his cigarette. But understand something. You work for us now. Not Russo's unions, not your own interests. Us. You do what we say when we say it. That includes keeping your distance from Lena until we tell you otherwise. But I said we'd help you get her back. I didn't say when. Tony's voice hardened. Right now, her being with Russo is useful. It distracts him, makes him emotional. Emotional men make mistakes. When the time is right, when Russo's too busy dealing with collapsed construction permits and federal subpoenas, then you can have your girlfriend back. Derek wanted to argue, but Tony's expression left no room for negotiation. This was the deal. Take it or leave it. Fine, he muttered. How do I contact you? Tony handed him a burner phone. This number only. You see something relevant, you call. Every Monday you report what you've learned that week. Miss a report and you're done. Try to play both sides and... Tony gestured to the empty construction site, the 3-story drop to concrete below. Accidents happen on job sites every day. The threat was clear. I understand. Good. Tony started toward the stairs, then paused. One more thing. That cop who's been helping you, Alex Martinez, your cousin, he's ours now too. Vince has him feeding information. So, if you're thinking about warning Russo or playing hero, know that we'll find out. Derek's stomach sank. Alex had been his ace in the hole, his way of keeping tabs on police movements. Now, even that was compromised. He was alone, completely alone, except for Vince Moretti's organization, which would chew him up and spit him out the moment he stopped being useful. As Tony disappeared down the stairs, Derek walked to the edge of the floor, looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Lena was in Russo's mansion, probably laughing with that deaf kid, playing happy family. She thought she was safe, but was she truly safe, entangled in a web where loyalty shifted like sand and every relationship was a calculated risk? Derek had just betrayed Damen Russo, selling information that threatened to dismantle his empire. He envisioned Russo's downfall, knowing that when Damen was too vulnerable to protect Lena, he would reclaim what he believed was rightfully his. He grinned, lifting his flask for another drink, sensing this was merely the prelude. As dusk settled, blanketing the estate in anticipation, Lena sat cross-legged on Isabella's bedroom floor. They were surrounded by poster board, markers, and printouts of the solar system, engrossed in Isabella's science project. A planet model complete with facts in both English and ASL due Friday. Mars is my favorite, Isabella signed, carefully affixing red construction paper to a styrofoam sphere. Because it looks angry, but it's also lonely. Why lonely? Lena signed back, intrigued. Because it's so far from Earth, Isabella responded, her hands moving deliberately. Like me sometimes. Before you came, I was the only one here who signed. Uncle Damen tries, but it's hard for him. Mrs. Chun knows a little, but mostly I just stay quiet. Lena's heart ached. You're not alone anymore. Isabella's gaze lifted, her eyes sparkling. Promise? The word hung, heavy with a child's hope. Lena understood she shouldn't make promises she might not keep. Her presence was temporary, a shield until Derrick ceased to be a threat, or until Damien deemed her more trouble than she was worth. But faced with this small girl, who had lost her parents and her hearing, living in a gilded cage with an uncle who loved her but struggled to connect, Lena couldn't refuse. Promise, she signed. They settled into a comfortable rhythm, Isabella humming tunelessly as Lena helped paint Jupiter's swirling storms. The normalcy of it felt profoundly surreal. Only 2 days prior, Lena had been fleeing for her life. Now she was doing homework with a Mafia boss's niece. Tell me about your family, Isabella wrote in her notebook, holding it up for Lena to read. Lena hesitated. My mom passed away when I was 17 from cancer. My dad, he wasn't really present after that. I have a sister in California, but we don't talk much. Why not? Isabella's childlike curiosity was disarming. She didn't like Derrick, told me to leave him. I didn't listen, and she stopped calling. Lena put down her paintbrush. Is he really bad? Isabella's eyes held a wisdom beyond her years. Yes, sweetie, he is. Good thing Uncle Damien saved you then. He saves people sometimes. He pretends he doesn't, but he does. Before Lena could reply, a shift in the atmosphere registered, that peculiar stillness signaling an unseen presence. She turned to find Damen in the doorway, still in his dress shirt and slacks, his tie loosened. He held a whiskey glass, surveying the scene. The scattered craft supplies, the room filled with laughter, his niece's genuine smile. A flicker of something crossed his face, perhaps longing or pain at what he couldn't provide for himself. Uncle Damien, Isabella waved him in. Come see our solar system. He entered hesitantly, like a man treading on hallowed ground where he felt unworthy. Isabella launched into an animated explanation, her hands flying, and Lena translated when his understanding wavered. She says Saturn is the most beautiful because of its rings, but Neptune is the most mysterious because it's the farthest and coldest. Like me, Damien murmured, his gaze fixed on Isabella. Cold and far away. You're not cold, Isabella signed, catching enough of his words. You're just scared. His jaw tightened. I'm not, he fumbled to sign, not scared. You are, Isabella insisted. Scared of being close, like Neptune's scared of the sun. The metaphor was remarkably profound for a 10-year-old. Damien looked at Lena, and in his eyes she saw the undeniable truth. He was terrified of failing Isabella, of losing control, of allowing anyone to glimpse beyond his formidable exterior. She's right, Lena said softly. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression hardening. I need to take this. Lena, stay with Isabella. As he departed, Lena heard his voice drop to a dangerous pitch beyond the door. Downstairs, in Damen's study, Rico stood by the window, phone in hand, his face etched with concern. Boss, we have a problem. Damen poured another whiskey. Talk. Lena Martinez met with Tony Giordano this afternoon at the Riverwalk construction site, one of ours. The glass paused halfway to Damien's lips. Giordano is Vince's lieutenant. Exactly. Our source inside Vince's organization says Derrick's feeding them information. Union connections, construction permits, shell companies, everything he knows about our legitimate operations. How much does he know? Too much. He's worked half the sites on the north side. If he has documentation, if he can prove the connections to our people. Rico's hands clenched. Vince is building a case to bury us politically and legally. And it all started because you claimed that girl. Damen's eyes turned to ice. Careful. I'm being honest, boss. Lena is a liability. She brings Derrick. Derrick brings Vince. And now, our entire operation is exposed. Rico moved closer, his voice urgent. There's a simple solution. We hand her back to Derrick. Tell him she was just a momentary thing. Nothing serious. Vince loses his leverage. Derrick goes away. Everyone wins except Lena. She's not family. She's not crew. She's a random woman who hid under your table. Rico's frustration brimmed over. I've been with you 12 years. I've killed for you, lied for you, buried bodies for you, and you're risking everything we've built for a stranger. Damen turned, his expression causing Rico to take a step back. That stranger, Damen said quietly, dangerously, is under my protection. I claimed her publicly. Do you think I can just hand her over to an abuser and maintain respect? That shows weakness, not strength. Keeping her shows weakness. You're distracted emotional. I'm strategic. Damien's voice sliced like a blade. Vince thinks Lena is my weakness. Let him think it. Let him focus on her while we reinforce our real assets. And Derrick, his smile was chilling. Derrick's about to learn that betraying me comes with consequences. Rico's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his face paling. Boss, we have movement outside. 3 cars watching the estate. Vince's people. Damien walked to the window. Beyond the gates, in the deepening darkness, he could discern the vehicles, not even bothering to hide anymore. This was a direct message. We're watching. We're waiting. Double the security, Damien ordered. No one gets in or out without my approval. And Rico, he turned his eyes hard. If I hear you've contacted Derrick again, if I even suspect you're considering handing Lena over, you'll discover exactly how cold Neptune can be. Rico's face went white. I would never. You already have. You called Derrick earlier, didn't you? Suggested a meeting. The silence confirmed it. You're lucky you're valuable, Damen stated, but your value is declining rapidly. Get out. Rico left, and Damen stood alone in his study, surrounded by walls that suddenly felt suffocating. Upstairs, Lena was helping Isabella paint planets, bringing light into the darkness. Outside, enemies circled like sharks scenting blood, and Damen realized with absolute clarity that everything was about to explode. The only question was whether he could protect what truly mattered when it did. Morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Damien's downtown office tower, 32 stories of steel and glass housing Russo enterprises. This was his legitimate business empire: import, export, real estate development, private security consulting, all legal, all profitable, all meticulously constructed fronts that laundered money and provided cover for the family's true operations. Lena stood at the window of Damien's executive suite, watching the city awaken below. She had barely slept, acutely aware of the surveillance cars around the estate and the tension that had hummed through the house since Damien's late-night conversation. Mrs. Chun had woken her at 6 with a tailored navy dress and heels that made her feel, momentarily, like she might belong in this world of power and wealth. She didn't. Ready? Damen emerged from his private bathroom, now in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. He looked every inch the legitimate businessman, save for his eyes, which remained cold and calculating. Why am I here? Because leaving you at the estate with Vince's people watching is stupid. Here, you're surrounded by my security, my people, in public view. He adjusted his cufflinks. And because appearances matter. If the city sees you at my headquarters, entering my world, it sends a message that I'm yours, that you're protected. He moved closer, his voice dropping. I have a board meeting in 20 minutes. City councilmen, business partners, people who need reassurance that recent complications won't affect our operations. You'll stay in this office. Don't leave. Don't open the door for anyone except Marco. I'm a prisoner. You're safe. His hand cupped her face, the gesture surprisingly gentle. There's a difference. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it, and his jaw tightened. We have company downstairs. Lobby, 10 minutes earlier. The paparazzi had begun gathering at dawn, presumably tipped off by Vince's people, about Lena's arrival. By the time Damien's SUV pulled up to the tower's entrance, 20 photographers crowded the sidewalk, cameras primed. Mr. Russo, Mr. Russo, is it true you're dating the woman from the restaurant? What's her name? How serious is this relationship? Damien stepped out first, his expression impassive, and extended a hand to Lena. She emerged, blinking under the camera flashes, feeling his arm firmly encircle her waist. Is she moving in with you? Are you getting married? Damien offered no answers, simply guiding Lena through the gauntlet with practiced ease. But the damage was done. By the time they reached the elevator, photos were already uploading to gossip sites. Mafia King's new queen. Damen Russo, Chicago's most coveted bachelor, appears to be off the market, photographed with a mystery woman. "They're calling me your queen," Lena observed, scrolling through her new phone, a gift from Marco that very morning. "This is insane." "It's strategic," Damen asserted, gathering documents for his meeting. "By tomorrow, every family from here to New York will know about you. That makes you untouchable. Attacking you means attacking me, and no one is ready for that war. Except Vince. Especially not Vince. He's testing boundaries, seeing how far he can push, but he won't cross certain lines." Damien paused at the door. "Marco's outside. Need anything? Ask him. Don't leave this office." As the door clicked shut, Lena found herself alone in the corporate cathedral of power. She surveyed the opulent space, a formidable mahogany desk, luxurious leather furniture, and shelves laden with law books and historical texts. On the credenza, a photograph showed a young Damen with his brother, both smiling, both vibrant, before the accident, before everything irrevocably changed. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number. "You look good in that dress, like playing dress-up." Derek. Her hands trembled. She blocked the number. 30 seconds later, another message from a different number. "He can't protect you forever. You're still mine." Then another. "I'm going to enjoy reminding you who you belong to." Lena's breath hitched. How could he keep acquiring new numbers? How could he? A knock at the door startled her. "Miss Martinez, I'm Jennifer from HR. Mr. Russo asked me to bring you coffee." Lena cautiously opened the door to a professional woman in her 40s, holding a tray with coffee and pastries, a warm smile gracing her face. "Thank you," Lena said, accepting the tray. "He really cares about you," Jennifer remarked. "I've worked for Mr. Russo 8 years, never seen him like this." "Like what?" "Protective, almost soft." Jennifer smiled. "It's good. He deserves happiness." After Jennifer departed, Lena sipped the coffee. It was perfect, exactly how she liked it. Damen had noticed, paying attention to details she hadn't realized he'd ever seen. 2 floors below, in a conference room, Damen presided over a long table. 8 men city councilmen, union leaders, and his own executives, all carefully selected allies, understood the clandestine power struggles beneath Chicago's legitimate facade. "The headlines are problematic," Councilman Morrison stated, sliding a tablet across the table. "This woman, this relationship, it's attracting unwanted attention. My personal life is my concern. Not when it impacts our business partnerships." This came from Frank Delgado, the union representative Derek had mentioned. "Vince Moretti called me this morning, says the truce is in jeopardy because you're distracted, says maybe we should reconsider our loyalties." Damen's eyes turned glacial. "Did he?" "He's using your girlfriend as leverage," Morrison continued, implying that a man controlled by emotions isn't a man we can trust with million-dollar contracts and political cover. "I'm not controlled by anything." "Then prove it," Delgado challenged. "Send the girl away. Show Vince and everyone else that business comes first." The room fell silent. Every man watched Damen, anticipating his response. "No," Damen stated simply. "Boss," Marco, leaning against the wall, shifted uneasily. "I claimed her publicly. Backing down now shows weakness, not strength. It tells every rival they can manipulate me by threatening people I care about." Damen leaned forward. "Lena stays. Anyone who has a problem with that can find new business partners. I hear Vince is always recruiting." The veiled threat hung in the air. Morrison and Delgado exchanged glances. "Yeah, fine," Morrison conceded finally. "But if this situation escalates, if Vince breaks the truce—" "Let him. I've been preparing for that possibility since the day we signed." Damen stood. Meeting adjourned. As the men filed out, Marco approached. "Boss, Rico just called. He's got confirmation. Derek and Vince are planning something big tomorrow. They're going to make a move." "On what?" "On Lena. Derek wants her back. Vince wants you destabilized. They're working together now." Damen's phone buzzed. A text from Jennifer in HR. "The coffee I delivered. Miss Martinez didn't order it. Someone else did." His blood ran cold. "Get to my office now." They raced toward the elevator, but Damen already knew they'd be too late. The coffee, the mysterious delivery, it had been a diversion. While he was in his meeting, proving he wasn't distracted by Lena, someone had made their move. The elevator couldn't ascend fast enough. The elevator doors parted. Damen burst into his office. Marco and 2 guards behind him, weapons drawn. Lena stood by the window, coffee cup in hand, alive and unharmed. She spun around at their abrupt entrance, eyes wide. "What?" Damen crossed the room in 3 strides, taking the cup from her hand and sniffing it. Nothing. He tasted a drop. "Just coffee?" "False alarm," Marco said, lowering his weapon. Jennifer really did send coffee? Then why did she text that she didn't? Damen's mind reeled. His phone rang. Jennifer herself. "Mr. Russo, I'm so sorry. I meant to say I wasn't the one who ordered the coffee delivery to your office. Someone called the cafe directly, used your name and credit card. I just brought it up because they asked me to. I didn't realize." This wasn't a diversion. It was a distraction. The coffee was a feint to make his security scramble, to make him believe the threat was here, which meant the real threat was somewhere else. "Where's Isabella?" Damen asked, his voice lethally calm. Lena frowned. "At school, isn't she?" Marco's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his face drained of color. "Boss, Isabella's therapy appointment, the language center downtown. Mrs. Chun took her right after school. Call them now?" But Damien already knew what Marco would discover. This was the play. Create chaos at his office, distract his security, then strike at his vulnerability. Not Lena in his fortress-like building, but Isabella, his niece, his very weakness. The Bridge, 4:47 p.m. The Language Therapy Center was housed in a renovated brownstone near the river, where Isabella spent 2 afternoons a week with specialists. Mrs. Chun had picked her up at 3:30, accompanied by 2 of Damen's bodyguards' standard protocol. They were crossing the Wabash Avenue Bridge when the first car struck. A black sedan slammed into the SUV's rear quarter panel, sending it into a violent spin. Mrs. Chun screamed. One bodyguard shouted into his radio, while the other drew his weapon, but they had been driven into a kill box. A second vehicle blocked them from the front, and a van screeched to a halt alongside. Men poured out, 6 of them, moving with military precision. The bodyguards fired, but they were outgunned. One fell instantly, blood blossoming across his chest. The second managed to kill an attacker before a bullet struck him in the shoulder. Isabella sat frozen in the back seat, her silent world erupting in vivid, terrifying violence. She couldn't hear, but she could see it all. Mrs. Chun fumbled with her seatbelt. "Run, Isabella, run!" The van's side door slid open. Derek stood there, his face contorted with a mixture of triumph and rage. Behind him, 2 of Vince's men waited, weapons drawn. "Lena!" Derek shouted, yanking open the SUV's door. Then his face fell. Not Lena. Just a terrified child and an old woman. "Wrong car," one of Vince's men grumbled. "The intel said—" "I know what the intel said." Derek's hands shook. "Rico said she'd be here with the kid going to therapy." Isabella kicked her small foot, connecting with Derek's shin. He grabbed her arm, but she twisted away with surprising agility, bolting from the car. "Grab her!" Derek lunged, but Isabella was already running, her school backpack bouncing against her shoulders. "Forget the kid," Vince's man ordered. "She's not the target. Regroup. Find the girl." "No!" Derek's voice turned vicious. "If we can't get Lena, we take something Russo cares about. Grab the old woman." They dragged Mrs. Chun from the car, her screams piercing the rush-hour traffic noise. Other cars had stopped, drivers pulling out phones, filming. Chicago's rush hour provided plenty of witnesses. "Move!" Derek shoved Mrs. Chun into the van just as sirens wailed in the distance. The attackers piled into their vehicles and scattered, leaving behind 2 dead bodyguards, a wrecked SUV, and 30 witnesses recording everything. Isabella ran until her lungs burned, her silent world narrowing to pure survival instinct. She knew these streets. The therapy center was only 6 blocks from Uncle Damen's office. She could make it. She had to. Damen's office. 5:03 p.m. The door burst open. A security guard carried Isabella inside, the little girl's face streaked with tears, her dress torn. She saw Damen and launched herself into his arms, her small body trembling. His arms wrapped around her automatically, his mind turning cold and lethal. What happened? Isabella's hands shook as she signed, her movements frantic and disjointed. Men. Bad men. They crashed the car. shot Michael and Tony. Took Mrs. Chun. They wanted Lena, but she wasn't there, so they took Mrs. Chun instead. Slow down. Damen's voice remained calm, even as rage boiled in his chest. Who took Mrs. Chun? The angry man from the restaurant, Derek, and other men. They said something about Rico. Rico told them where to find us. Everything clicked into place with sickening clarity. Rico, his second-in-command, the man he had trusted for 12 years, had fed Derek and Vince the information they needed about Isabella's therapy schedule, about Mrs. Chun's route. They had wanted Lena, but when she wasn't there, they had taken Mrs. Chun as leverage. Marco appeared, phone pressed to his ear. Boss, we've got confirmation, bridge attack, 2 of our guys dead. Witnesses say Derek Martinez was there, along with known Moretti soldiers. They grabbed Mrs. Chun and scattered. We're tracking the vehicles now. Damen's arms tightened around Isabella. The young girl, who once lost her parents in her hearing, had just begun to reclaim a sense of security. Now, she'd witnessed deaths and the abduction of her caregiver, all because of him, because he had claimed Lena, thereby making her a target. Lena stood motionless by the window, her face eerily pale. "This is my fault," she whispered. "No," Damen's voice cut through the air like ice. "This is Rico's fault, and Derek's, and Vince's." He gently placed Isabella down, signing to her. "Stay with Marco. I'm going to fix this." "Be careful," Isabella signed back, her eyes wide with apprehension. He then turned to Lena. "They wanted you. This was about getting to me through you." "Then let them have me," she pleaded. "Mrs. Chun is innocent. Isabella could have been killed. Which is exactly why I'm ending this tonight." He pulled out his phone, sending a quick text. Almost instantly, his phone rang. "Russo." Vince's voice oozed smoothness and amusement through the receiver. "I hear you had some excitement this afternoon. You have something that belongs to me." Damien's voice was steely. "Do I? I think you have something that belongs to Derek Martinez. How about a trade? Name the place." "The old waterfront warehouse. Pier 17. You know, the one that used to be yours until that little territory dispute last year." Vince's smile was almost audible. "Come alone. Bring the girl. We'll make an exchange. Mrs. Chun for Lena. Everyone goes home happy." "I'm not bringing Lena into your trap." "Then Mrs. Chun dies, and we come for Isabella next." "Your choice, Damien. The woman you've known for 3 days, or the people you actually care about." The line went dead. Damien stood perfectly still, his mind racing, calculating angles, odds, and survival rates. He then looked at Lena, at Isabella, at Marco. "Call everyone," he said quietly. "Every soldier, every asset. We're going to war. I'm going with you." Damien didn't even glance up from the tactical map spread across his desk. "No. Mrs. Chun was taken because of me. Isabella almost died because of me." Lena's voice was unwavering, despite the fear coursing through her veins. "I'm not hiding while other people pay for my mistakes." "This isn't a negotiation," Damen replied, his finger tracing routes on the map approach vectors, exit strategies, kill zones. 20 of his men filled the office, checking weapons and coordinating over radio headsets. "You stay here with Isabella and Marco. Vince wants me. If I don't show up, he kills Mrs. Chun and comes after Isabella anyway. You know it. I know it." Lena moved closer, forcing him to meet her gaze. "Let me help end this." Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, perhaps, or a recognition of the same stubborn determination he saw in himself. "If you come, you follow my orders exactly. No heroics, no improvisation." His hand cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. "I don't want to watch you die tonight." "Then don't let me." Pier 17. 9:47 p.m. Fog rolled off the river like a living entity, thick and cold, shrouding the abandoned warehouse in an eerie gray. The structure loomed from the mist-rusted corrugated metal, shattered windows, and shipping cranes jutting into the night sky like skeletal fingers. This had once been Russo territory, until a turf war 6 months prior redefined the boundaries. Now it was a disputed zone, perfect for Vince's intentions. Deniable, isolated, far from any help. Damien's SUV glided to a halt 50 yards from the warehouse entrance. Behind them, obscured by the fog, his soldiers maneuvered into position on rooftops, in alleyways, and even in the water itself. 20 men with a single objective: to get Mrs. Chun and Lena out alive, and to make Vince Moretti bitterly regret his play. "Last chance to stay in the car," Damen urged. Lena opened her door. "Let's go." They walked together across the broken concrete, their footsteps echoing eerily. The warehouse door stood ajar, light spilling from within an invitation, a trap. Derrick emerged in the doorway, flanked by 2 of Vince's soldiers. His eyes locked onto Lena with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "There she is," his voice slurred with whiskey and vindication. "My girl coming back where she belongs." "I don't belong to you," Lena asserted. "I never did." "We'll see about that." Derrick descended the steps. "Mr. Moretti wants to see you both," brought the old lady, just like promised. They entered the warehouse, a cavernous space filled with rusted shipping containers and overhead catwalks. The air was thick with the scent of oil and river water. Floodlights cast harsh shadows across the interior. 20 men waited inside, all armed, all watching. Vince stood on a raised platform near the back, Mrs. Chun bound to a chair beside him. The housekeeper's face was bruised, but her eyes held a defiant glint. "Damen Russo," Vince spread his arms like a gracious host. "Welcome to neutral ground." "There's nothing neutral about this, Vince. You kidnapped my employee, shot my men, terrorized my niece." Damien's voice was deadly calm. "That's an act of war. That's business. You have something I want. Leverage over you, your weakness." Vince gestured to Lena. "Now we make a trade. The girl for your housekeeper." Everyone walks away. The truce continues. "Except you and I both know the truce ends the moment you order this attack." Vince smiled. "Perhaps. But this way you get your people back. Derrick gets his girlfriend. I get the satisfaction of proving that Damen Russo can be bent. Everybody wins." "I'm not his girlfriend," Lena declared loudly. "And I'm not going anywhere with Derrick." Derrick moved swiftly, grabbing her arm and twisting it behind her back. Pain shot through her shoulder. "You don't get a choice, babe. Mr. Moretti's been very generous. I get you back, I get a promotion, and I get to remind you exactly who's in charge." "You're going to hurt her?" Damien's voice dropped to a whisper, more terrifying than a shout. "That's your play? She needs to learn respect." The first shot erupted from the darkness outside, a sniper's bullet that felled the guard nearest the door. Then, chaos. Damien's men poured in from every entrance, through doors, windows, and even dropping from the catwalks where they had infiltrated during the conversation. Gunfire exploded through the warehouse, muzzle flashes strobing in the fog. Derrick shoved Lena toward a shipping container, using her as a shield. She stumbled, hitting the metal wall hard, and felt him press against her back, his gun pressed to her ribs. "Move and I'll shoot," he hissed. But Derrick had made a critical error. He had grabbed her, threatened her, hurt her for the very last time. And Lena had spent 2 years mastering his patterns, his weaknesses. She had also used the car ride here to have Marco teach her a few self-defense moves. Lena suddenly dropped her weight, becoming dead weight in Derrick's grip. He stumbled, his hold loosening. She drove her elbow back into his solar plexus, precisely where Marco had shown her. Derrick gasped, and she spun, bringing her knee up between his legs with all her might. He collapsed. She snatched his gun, her hands shaking but determined, and pointed it at him. "Lena, don't!" Mrs. Chun's voice cut through the pandemonium. But Lena wasn't listening. She stared at Derrick, writhing on the ground. This man who had terrorized her for years, who had made her afraid to exist. Her finger tightened on the trigger. Then Damen was there, his hand gently covering hers, lowering the weapon. "Not like this," he said quietly. "Not you." Around them, the fight was winding down. Vince's men were outsmarted and outnumbered. Damien's soldiers had completely turned the ambush. Bodies littered the floor. Vince himself was on his knees, 3 guns pointed at his head. "You set up a trap and walked right into mine," Damen stated, his arm encircling Lena's waist. "Did you really think I'd come unprepared?" Vince spat blood. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is," Damen signaled, and his men began zip-tying the prisoners. "The truce is broken. You tried to take what's mine, and now you're going to spend a very long time regretting it." Marco cut Mrs. Chun's bonds. The housekeeper rushed to Lena, pulling her into a fierce hug. Derek struggled to his knees, his face mottled with rage and pain. "Lena, please, I love you. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix." Lena's voice was steady now, stronger than she'd ever felt. "You never loved me. You loved controlling me, but I'm done being controlled." She turned to Damien. "What happens to him?" Damien studied Derek with the cold assessment of a predator, deciding if prey was worth consuming. "That's up to you." Lena looked at Derek, truly looked at him. This man who had stolen years of her life, who had made her afraid of her own shadow. She felt nothing. No love, no hate, just a distant pity for someone so broken they could only feel powerful by breaking others. "Let the police have him," she said. "He's got warrants, assault, stalking, filing false reports. Let the system handle him." "Merciful," Damen observed. "Practical. He's not worth your time or mine." Damien smiled, genuinely smiled, and Lena felt something shift between them. She wasn't merely a victim he had saved. She was a partner who had fought alongside him. As sirens wailed in the distance and Damien's men secured the scene, Lena realized something profound. She had finally stopped running. 4 days later, Damen's estate. The estate felt different now, somehow quieter, despite nothing physical having changed. Lena stood at the window of what had become her room, no longer the guest room, just hers, watching dawn break over the meticulously manicured lawns. Days had passed since the warehouse, since she had held a gun on Derek and chosen mercy over vengeance, since everything had fundamentally changed. A gentle knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come." Damen entered, carrying 2 coffee cups. He had been doing that lately, bringing her morning coffee, staying for conversations that had nothing to do with threats or danger, just talking. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, handing her a cup. "Too much thinking." She accepted it gratefully. "What happened to Derek?" "Chicago PD has him on 6 charges. Alex Martinez, his cousin, the dirty cop, turned state's witness to save his own skin. Between his testimony and the warehouse raid, Derek's looking at 15 to 20 years. Damien's expression remained neutral. "Are you still content with that choice, allowing him to live?" Lena took a sip of her coffee. "Yes. He's not worth staining my conscience with his blood. Prison will shatter him more effectively than any bullet could." Clever and compassionate, a perilous combination. "I learned from someone who is both shrewd and merciless." Damien's mouth curved upwards. They settled into a comfortable quiet, observing the sunrise paint the sky with hues of gold and rose, a stark contrast to the darkness, gunfire, and terror of 4 nights prior in the warehouse. "What about Vince?" Lena inquired. "Ah, that's more intriguing." Damien's eyes glinted with a predatory sheen. "Vince is finished in Chicago. His assault on my family violated every code we adhere to. The other families have withdrawn their support. No one wishes to align with a man incapable of executing even a simple ambush. So the truce is now obsolete. I control the port, the construction unions, the distribution networks, everything Vince coveted, and he's retreating to Milwaukee with the remnants of his operation." Damien set down his cup. "Your presence didn't weaken me, Lena. It compelled everyone to reveal their true colors, separating the loyal from the treacherous. It made me stronger." "Enrico!" Damien's expression hardened. "That situation is being resolved today. I wanted you to witness it." The study. 1:09 a.m. Rico stood in Damien's study, flanked by 2 guards. He appeared diminished, somehow smaller. The man who had served as second in command for 12 years was now merely another traitor. Lena entered with Damien, and Rico's gaze flickered to her with a hint of regret. "I want her to hear this," Damien stated, settling behind his desk. "Your confession, everything." Rico swallowed hard. "Boss, I never intended—" "You contacted Derek Martinez 3 times. You provided him with information concerning our operations, Isabella's schedule, and Lena's movements." Damien's voice was clinical, devoid of emotion. "You acted because you believed she was making me weak, distracted. Did I interpret that correctly?" "I was protecting the family. You were safeguarding your position." Damien leaned forward. "You saw someone growing close to me and panicked, fearing you'd lose your place at my side." Rico's silence affirmed it. "The irony," Damien continued, is that your betrayal precisely confirmed what I've been trying to impress upon you. Loyalty isn't blind obedience. It's about trust. And you shattered mine. I've afforded you 12 years, which is the sole reason you're still breathing. Damien rose. Here's what happens next. You leave Chicago tonight. No money, no connections, no family protection. You'll inform anyone who inquires that you've retired. You will never again utter my name, Lena's name, or Isabella's name. You will vanish completely. And if I refuse, Rico's face grew pale. Then we'll have a very different conversation, one that concludes with you in the river. He looked to Lena as if she might intervene, but she met his gaze with chilling clarity. You endangered a 10-year-old girl because of your ego, she said quietly. You're fortunate Damien is allowing you to walk away. Rico was escorted out by the guards. Lena watched him depart, then turned to Damien. You could have killed him. I could have. Part of me desired to. Damien poured whiskey, despite the early hour. But death is easy. Living with the profound knowledge that he destroyed everything he built, that's a far more enduring punishment. You're more merciful than people realize. Don't misinterpret calculated pragmatism for mercy. But his eyes softened. Though perhaps you're rubbing off on me. Marco entered, tablet in hand. Boss, the city council just approved the port expansion contracts. Unanimous vote. The union representatives confirmed all our people are secure in their positions, and Councilman Morrison personally called to congratulate you on resolving your recent difficulties. Translation, they're all falling in line now that Vince is finished, Damien stated. Precisely. You're politically stronger than you've been in years. Marco glanced at Lena. The headlines are also helping. Russo protects family in warehouse raid. You look like a hero instead of a mobster. I'm both, Damien said dryly. Anything else? Mrs. Chun wants to know if Miss Martinez will be staying permanently. Something about redecorating her room properly if she is. The question hung in the air. Lena felt Damien's gaze upon her, waiting. I don't know, she said honestly. This entire situation began because I was fleeing Derek. Now he's imprisoned. Vince is gone. Rico's exiled. The danger is over. I no longer have a reason to stay. Don't you? Damien's voice was quiet but intense. Before she could answer, Isabella burst into the room, her backpack bouncing. She ran directly to Lena, signing excitedly. Guess what? My science project won second place. And my teacher said my presentation in ASL was the best she'd ever seen because you helped me practice. Lena's throat tightened. She signed back. I'm so proud of you. Are you staying? Isabella's hand slowed, becoming more hesitant. Uncle Damien said maybe you'd leave now that the bad men are gone, but you promised you'd stay, remember? Lena looked at this little girl who had endured so much loss, at the man who had risked everything to protect her, at the strange, dangerous yet beautiful life she had stumbled into just 4 days ago. She had arrived here running from something. Perhaps it was time to stay for something instead. Tell Mrs. Chun, Lena said to Marco, her eyes still on Damien, that yes, she should redecorate my room properly. Isabella's face lit up like the sun, and Damien smiled, not the cold, calculating smile of a Mafia boss, but something genuine, warm, and human. Good, was all he said, but it was enough. 3 weeks later, rooftop garden sunset. The rooftop garden was Lena's favorite discovery, a hidden oasis atop the estate that few knew existed. Damien's mother had planted it years ago before she passed, and it had been maintained, though rarely visited. Now, as October yielded to November, the last chrysanthemums bloomed in bursts of gold and rust. Lena spread a blanket on the stone tiles while Isabella unpacked her telescope, chattering excitedly in sign. Venus should be visible tonight, and if we're lucky, we might even see Jupiter. Did you know Jupiter has 79 moons? I did not know that, Lena signed back, smiling. You'll have to show me. The sun hung low on the horizon, painting Chicago's skyline in shades of amber and rose. From this vantage point, the city appeared peaceful, even beautiful. It was difficult to believe that just 3 weeks prior, she had been running through those very streets, terrified and alone. Now she stood on a rooftop, helping a 10-year-old set up a telescope in a home that had somehow become hers. Life was indeed strange. Isabella peered through the telescope, adjusting the focus. There, that bright one. That's Venus. Lena looked, seeing the brilliant point of light, and felt something shift within her chest, wonder perhaps, or peace. She had spent so long looking down, watching for threats, that she had forgotten to look up. Can I show you something? Isabella's hands moved shyly. Of course. Uncle Damien taught me some new signs for feelings I didn't have words for before. Isabella's hands moved slowly, deliberately. This one means safe, and this one means home. And this one, she made a gesture, hands over her heart, then opening outward. What's that one? Family, Isabella signed. Not the family you're born with, the family you choose. Lena's eyes burned. Oh, sweetheart. Isabella threw her arms around Lena's waist, and Lena held her tight. This brave little girl who had endured so much loss, yet still possessed the courage to love again. You two make quite the picture. Damien's voice came from the rooftop access door. He emerged into the fading light, jacket discarded, tie loosened, looking more relaxed than Lena had ever seen him. In his hands he carried a tray with hot chocolate and cookies. Mrs. Chun insisted, he said, setting it down. Said watching stars requires proper provisions. Uncle Damien! Isabella released Lena and ran to him. Come see, it's so bright tonight. He allowed her to drag him to the telescope, his movements careful, indulgent. When he looked through the eyepiece, something softened in his expression. Beautiful, he murmured. Then his hands moved, still clumsy, but improving. Thank you for showing me, Isabella beamed. Damien straightened and found Lena watching him. What? You're getting better at signing. I have a good teacher. He moved to stand beside her, close enough that their shoulders brushed. And motivation. They stood together as Isabella returned to her telescope, mapping constellations with a focused intensity only children possess. The city stretched below them, vast and complicated, filled with darkness and light in equal measure. I talked to a lawyer yesterday, Lena said quietly, about my situation. Restraining orders, court dates, making sure Derek stays away even after he gets out. Good. You should protect yourself legally. Damien paused. I also have lawyers who can help if you want. I know, but I need to do some things myself. Stand on my own feet, she glanced at him. Even if those feet are currently standing on your rooftop. Our rooftop, he corrected. This is your home now, Lena, for as long as you want it to be. And what about this? She gestured between them. What we are. Damien was quiet for a long moment, his eyes on the darkening sky. 3 weeks ago, you slid under my table and asked me to pretend you were mine. I said yes because it was strategically useful, because it gave me leverage in a negotiation. I remember, but somewhere between that restaurant and this rooftop, it stopped being pretend. He turned to face her fully. You're not my possession, Lena. You're not a strategic asset or a political move. You're what? Someone who sees me, not the boss, not the monster everyone thinks I am, just me. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek. Someone who brought light into a house that had forgotten what light looked like. Lena's breath caught. Damien, I'm not good at this, he continued, his voice rough. I typically eschew relationships, emotions, and the mundane activities most people embrace, she began, a hint of vulnerability in her tone. But with you, I feel compelled to attempt it, if you'll allow me. Her mind drifted back to the woman she was a mere 3 weeks prior, perpetually fleeing, concealing herself, terrified of her own phantom. Then she considered the transformation she had undergone. She had confronted her abuser, fought alongside a prominent figure in the criminal underworld, and embraced both compassion and fortitude with equal measure. I am no longer running, she declared, her voice firm. Not from Derek, not from this situation, and certainly not from you. Excellent, he responded, his smile subtle yet sincere. Because I have no intention of letting you depart. He then leaned in and kissed her, a tender and deliberate gesture, as if she were a delicate treasure he feared shattering. Perhaps she was. Perhaps they were both fractured souls who had serendipitously intersected amidst the turmoil and resolved to forge a new beginning. Are you two engaged in a kiss? Isabella's inquisitive sign language interrupted their embrace. eliciting laughter from both of them. "Perhaps," Lena signed back playfully. "Good," Isabella stated with unwavering conviction. "You make Uncle Damon smile. He never smiled before." "She's not mistaken," Damen conceded, a rare admission. They settled together on the blanket, the three of them forming a peculiar yet perfect constellation. Isabella began identifying stars, while Damen awkwardly attempted to sign their names. In that moment, Lena experienced a sensation she hadn't felt in years: hope. The sprawling city lay beneath them, a labyrinth of peril and shadows, teeming with adversaries and dangers. Yet, here in this tranquil garden, beneath the nascent stars, they found solace. They were complete. They were a family. Lena suddenly understood that life's most profound joys often blossom from its most desperate junctures. Sometimes, seeking refuge beneath a stranger's table ultimately reveals your true home. Sometimes the man universally feared is precisely the one who instills courage within you. And sometimes love finds you when you least expect it. One by one, the stars appeared, illuminating the night sky. For the first time in an immeasurable period, Lena's gaze lifted upward instead of downward. The vista was truly magnificent.